ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ शांति शांति शांति। Namaskar my dear friends. This is fourth video on the life and teachings of Swami Brahamananda, direct disciple of Paramahamsa Ramakrishna. The last part of the third video was the liberation of a pret, a ghost. Now the fourth video starts. During his stay at Lake Kusum, Maharaj had the habit of rising at midnight and spending the rest of the night in meditation. One night, however, he felt tired and overslept. After a while, someone gave him a push and aroused him. At first he thought that this must be Swami Turiyananda. Then he saw a luminous figure in the dress of a Vaishnava saint standing beside him and counting his beads. After this, the figure appeared almost every night at midnight and joined him in his meditation. Later, in describing this incident to his disciples, Maharaj remarked, "Many holy men, after leaving the physical body, live in subtle spiritual bodies and help earnest religious aspirants in different ways." Towards the end of the year 1893, Turiyananda received a letter from a brother disciple describing Swami's success in America and requesting him to come back to the monastery, which had now been moved from Baranagar to Alam Bazar. Turiyananda read the contents of the letter to Maharaj and asked for his advice. Maharaj agreed that he ought to return. "Don't trouble about me," he said. "Go back to the monastery. You are needed there to do the work of the Lord." So Turiyananda unwillingly took his departure, and Maharaj remained alone a year in Vrindavan. During this period, he sometimes took a vow not to ask for food or other necessities of life from anyone. Generally, an unknown devotee brought food to his door, but sometimes there would be days when he had nothing. Once, while he was sitting in silence, a stranger laid a warm new blanket beside him. A few moments later, another stranger came by and took the blanket away. Maharaj sat still, smiling to himself as he watched the strange play of the Divine Mother. During the special festivities in memory of Sri Krishna, Brahamananda joined the devotees at a nearby temple. The crowd was chanting the name of God and singing Krishna's praises before the shrine. An aged holy man of the Vaishnava sect was sitting in one corner counting his beads. Suddenly he turned towards Maharaj and beckoned him to approach, indicating with affectionate gesture that he should sit down beside him. The two began to meditate. As Maharaj became absorbed, he felt the Vaishnava touch his head with his beads. He did this repeatedly, and each time as Brahamananda received the saint's touch, his hair stood on end and he experienced an ecstatic joy. By constant practice throughout these years of pilgrimage, Maharaj had at last achieved his aim. The state of Samadhi was now his own possession. He had won it for himself and he dwelt in it continually. Even in the periods of his normal consciousness, there was, as he said, a fullness of God in his heart all around him. Whenever he went, nature seemed to vibrate with joy. Established at last and forever in the consciousness of God, he felt ready to answer the call of worldly duty. On one day, quite suddenly, he left for Calcutta carrying that heavenly joy within his heart. Maharaj as the head of the Ramakrishna order. The return of Maharaj to Calcutta created stir amongst his brother disciples. His presence brought to them a new upsurge of spiritual joy. One day he told Swami Brahamananda, I was very happy in Vrindavan, but I left the holy city to come and live in the monastery. Here I want to serve my brothers and mankind. Our master Sri Ramakrishna was the embodiment of supreme love and devotion, so that our own lives must be such that people all over the world, burdened by earthly sufferings and miscreants, man learn to take his holy name and in him find rest and peace. Burdened by earthly sufferings and miseries, man learn to take his holy name and in him find rest and peace. When Swami, who was still in America, heard of Brahamananda's return to Calcutta, he felt relieved of any further anxiety regarding the conduct of the Ramakrishna order in India. His letters to Maharaj were full of the spirit of universal service, and Maharaj in his turn would inspire his brother disciples with the same ideal. All felt an unbounded confidence in Swamiji and Maharaj, but the love of these two for each other was so deep and so spiritual that no one else could fully understand it. 2 years after Brahamananda's return from Vrindavan, Swamiji came back from America. A public reception was prepared for him at a house in Calcutta, and Maharaj himself was the first to welcome his brother, placing a garland of flowers around his neck. Swamiji in his turn touched the feet of Maharaj, quoting a saying from the scriptures, the son of a guru is to be regarded as the guru himself, meaning that Brahamananda was the spiritual son of Sri Ramakrishna. Smiling sweetly, Maharaj touched his feet and returned the compliment with another quotation, one's elder brother is to be respected like one's father. Swamiji was then taken to the Alam Bazar monastery. Here he placed in Brahamananda's hands all the money which American devotees had subscribed towards the Indian mission. All this time, he said, I have been acting as a trustee. It is a relief to give this back to its real owner, our Raja. The natures of the two friends were widely dissimilar and yet in a sense complementary. In the words of Sri Ramakrishna, Narayan dwells in the realm of absolute. The impersonal, he is like a sharp drawn sword of discrimination. Rakhal dwells in the realm of God, the sweet one, the repository of all blessed qualities. He is like a child on the lap of his mother, completely surrendering himself to her in every way. Vivekananda was like the flaming fire, the midday sun burning up all evil and impurity. Brahmananda was like a soft cool light soothing the aching heart. Vivekananda was like the deep and restless ocean, always eager to do the work of the spirit, always fighting against ignorance and superstition. Brahmananda was like the blue sky, vast and patient in spirit, patient in spirit. The manner of his working was inward and silent. Vivekananda laid the foundation for the spiritual undertaking entrusted to him by his master. Brahmananda built the edifice. Vivekananda, with his dynamic, aggressive personality, could wake a man from the sleep of ignorance. Brahmananda, with his characteristic serenity, could show him the way to mold his life in God. Each paid memorable tribute to the other. Through Swamiji, said Brahamananda, the world has come to know of Sri Ramakrishna, but for him very few could have understood our master's genius. And in the words of Swamiji, Raja is the greatest treasure house of spirituality. Once a European devotee came to visit Swamiji in the monastery, wishing to have his spiritual problems solved. Swamiji sent him to Maharaj, saying, "There you will find a dynamo working and we are all under him." After talking to Maharaj, the devotee expressed his gratitude and told Swamiji that all his doubts had been removed. Swami Sardananda rightly remarks, if Swami Vivekananda was loved and cherished by the Master as the means by which his spiritual mission was to be proclaimed to the world, Swami Brahamananda was no less valued by him as the future head of his organization. We have already described how before visiting America, Swamiji had spent more than 2 years as a wandering monk, traveling the length and breadth of India. It was at this time that he came to understand the inner source of his country's strength, for he saw how the masses, in spite of their miserable poverty and lack of education, with all their evils accompanying, still held fast to the ancient ideals of religious life. Swamiji's heart thrilled with pride in his country's spiritual greatness and bled for its material distress. When he came to the West, he found the picture exactly reversed. On the one hand, physical comfort, material prosperity, high standards of education, all the achievements of the human intellect. On the other hand, spiritual poverty and a failure to understand life's only purpose, the unfoldment of the God within man. He saw, in short, that the West had failed to accept wholeheartedly the ideals of Jesus Christ, the perfect civilization. Swamiji realized consist in blending and harmonizing the genius of the East with that of the West. Expressed philosophically, it is the blending of the active with the contemplative life. When Swamiji returned to India, he talked to his brother disciples, giving a new expression to the ideals for which Sri Ramakrishna had stood. It is not enough, he said, to devote your entire life to the realization of God for yourself alone. You must also live for the good of all, for the happiness of all. Swamiji wished his brothers to combine the contemplative life with the life of service to mankind. Brahmananda was the first to recognize the depth and scope of Swamiji's ideals, and he gave them his full support. On the first day of May 1897, Swamiji called a representative meeting of the monastic and lay his disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. At this meeting, the organization known as the Ramakrishna Mission was formed. Maharaj was elected president of the Calcutta Center later, early in 1902. Before the passing away of Swamiji, he was made head of the order, and he held that office for more than 20 years until his own death. The phenomenal growth of the mission during his lifetime is too well known to need recording here. Whenever India has suffered any great flood or famine or other calamity, the monks of the Ramakrishna order have come forward to relieve the distress of the people. Besides its innumerable emergency relief stations opened temporarily, it has established permanent charitable and religious institutions all over the country. Preaching centers and monasteries have also been opened in Europe and in North and South America. At the beginning of 1899, the permanent headquarters of the mission were established at Belur on the Ganges, now well known as the Belur Mutt. Foreign visitors to India have spoken highly in appreciation of the mission's success in social science to the monks of the order. However, such success can be only of secondary importance. Maharaj always insisted on this. The one purpose of life is to know God, plunge deep into the sea of bliss and become immortals, attain knowledge and devotion, then serve God in mankind. Work is not the end of life. Disinterested work is a means of attaining devotion. Meditate and dive deep within. Know that God alone is real. Keep at least 3/4 of your mind in God. It is enough if you give 1/4 to service, work and worship. A young disciple of Swamiji, inspired by his ideals of renunciation and service, devoted himself to nursing the sick and helping the poor. From a very humble beginning, his work grew into a huge organization. For many years, this disciple was the head of one of the largest homes of service in India under the Ramakrishna Mission. But when Maharaj saw that his work was becoming more important to him than his spiritual life, he relieved him of his post, inspired him with the ideal of realizing God, and sent him away to live a life of exclusive meditation. To quote Maharaj again, yes, you must work, but I insist that you devote yourselves to spiritual practices and meditation. Even though I may not ask you to work, your nature will force you to work. It is difficult to engage the mind in contemplation of God, but you are monks. Therefore, work must not be the sole purpose of your lives. At one time, a millionaire who had lost his wife came to the monastery and said he wished to renounce the world and give all his wealth to the Ramakrishna Mission. Swami Brahamananda reported this to Maharaj, who folded his hands and said gently, "Brother, a worldly man who associates with a holy man like yourself naturally becomes inspired by the ideal of renunciation. Shall we in our turn become a worldly because we have met a worldly man?" Maharaj refused to accept the money because he knew very well that the millionaire would later regret his offer, being as he was very much attached to his wealth. In the same way, he refused to accept a gift of real estate, knowing that the emotion which prompted the offer was merely temporary. He realized that the work of the mission could not prosper unless it was founded on a firm spiritual basis. Maharaj was more interested in the spiritual growth of his disciples than in their efficiency. He once reprimanded a senior disciple who had been put in charge of a younger brother, saying, "Did I send this young boy to you to make a good clerk out of him?" On another occasion, when a senior disciple of Swamiji was taking one of the younger disciples to task for negligence in some duty, Maharaj overheard the conversation and told him, "Of course it is wrong if this young man neglects his allotted duty. You have the right to scold him for that, but tell me, do you ever inquire if he is doing his duty to himself? Do you ask him if he is meditating regularly, or if he has any difficulties in his progress towards God? Is the work of the mission more important to you than this boy's spiritual growth?" While it is true that Maharaj held the ideal of selfless service of serving God in man to be a form of worship, he also pointed out that without the practice of meditation, it is hard to do work as worship, and that it is utterly impossible to annihilate the ego simply by actions, however selfless they may be. We must act, but we must also try by our meditation to merge the ego in God. Jesus said, "Love thy neighbor as thyself," but to really love mankind, an aspirant must also learn to love God with all his heart, his soul and his mind. Maharaj once told me, "My boy, devote yourself to spiritual practices, attain knowledge and devotion, then you will see how your heart will overflow with the love and sympathy for mankind. You will also find out how unnecessary is man's suffering, carrying as he does this mine of bliss within himself. Maharaj kept a watchful eye on the progress of the order. He turned towards God and directed our actions and the activities of the mission towards the interacting of minor strength, which alone can benefit mankind physically, morally and spiritually. When young men of temperaments live together, when young men of different temperaments live together, it is only natural that misunderstandings will arrive from time to time, no matter how much their common ideal may be. In one of the monasteries connected with a home of service, there were a number of young untrained members newly arrived from school and college. When they had been together a while, their old tendencies began to reassert themselves. They found new rival groups and started to quarrel. Senior Swami of the order went to investigate. After questioning everybody, he soon found out who were the ringleaders. He then wrote to Swami Brahamananda telling him that some of those boys were unfit for monastic life and should be expelled. Maharaj replied, "Don't do anything, I am coming to see for myself." When Maharaj arrived, he asked no question. He lived quietly in the monastery, insisting only on one thing, that all the boys should meditate regularly in his presence. Then he began to instruct them, making no distinction between the good and the bad. Gradually, the whole atmosphere of the place improved. The boys forgot their quarrels because they became deeply absorbed, and his right hand was raised in benediction. Seeing this, Swami Brahamananda asked Swami Sudhananda, a senior disciple of Swamiji, to prostrate before Maharaj and receive his blessing. Thereupon, every monk and every initiate followed his example, and Maharaj touched the head of each with his uplifted hand. Speaking from my own experience, I can only say that touch was like a cooling spring to a fevered body. It gave one an inner exaltation which could be felt but not described. All our troubles were forgotten and our hearts were full of love. Keep your mind as high as the mountains, Maharaj told a disciple whom he was sending to a monastery in the Himalayas. He himself lived always in an exalted state of consciousness, which subtly transformed the lives and characters of those around him. If the spiritual life is intensified, the outer life will adjust itself automatically. This principle applies equally to the life of an organization. Maharaj was once asked to make some new rules for guidance of the young monks. He replied, "Swamiji has already made our rules for us. We do not need to add any new ones. Add more love, attain more devotion, and help others to move toward the ideal of God." At the network of monasteries and homes of service spread over India, Maharaj began to visit them. I even know what is doing in America. Maharaj prosecute the knowledge not through the older means of communication but through exterior divine powers. Moreover, he was not satisfied with merely knowing. He sent spiritual and everyone in need. If a member of the order should be guilty of some serious offense and there would be talk of his expulsion, Maharaj would forgive his misdeeds and transform him in his touch. He used to say, "The sins of many births can be wiped out in one moment by one glance from the gracious eye of God." Once he said to me, "What is morality? If one acquires devotion to God, morality and purity will follow, without one even trying to be moral or pure. Practice, he would tell us. Through practice of the spiritual disciplines, the heart will be purified and a new realm will open. you will realize that God alone is real and that everything else is unreal. But when through papam and meditation a little awakening comes, do not imagine you have achieved the end. Light more, light onward, onward. Attend God. Give His vision, talk to Him. The success of a religious body depends not on its external achievements, its efficient organization, its buildings, the size of its membership, or its philanthropic activities, but upon the inner life of each of its members and the measure of their progress towards devotion and knowledge of God. This is the input of Maharaj as head of the order, impressed incredibly upon our minds. Maharaj as Guru. Sri Ramakrishna once said, when the lotus blooms, bees come of their own accord to gather the honey. When the lotus of a man's heart blossoms in the joy of God, spiritual aspirants will swarm to him. Many times we have watched Maharaj sitting amongst a crowd of devotees. One moment he would be as happy and playful as a child, then suddenly his mind would become indrawn and the whole atmosphere would vibrate with the presence of God. At such times, those who had come to visit him would find that all their doubts and problems had been solved. They would rise and leave his presence exalted and comforted, though not a single word had been spoken. The monastic order included many disciples of Holy Mother and Swami Ji, but most of these had little opportunity of associating with their gurus. Swami Ji passed away in 1902, and because Holy Mother did not live at the monastery, she instructed her disciples to follow the disciplines prescribed by Maharaj. Maharaj himself also accepted disciples, but at first he was very particular. Often he would of its members and the measure of their progress towards devotion and knowledge of God. This is the truth that Maharaj, as head of the order, impressed indelibly upon our minds. A deep impression upon Maharaj. After this, he initiated many more disciples. Once, while Maharaj and Swami Turiyananda were in Vrindavan, a young boy, later Swami Ambikananda, came to visit them. The boy knew Turiyananda already and would talk to him for hours, but he was shy of Maharaj, whom he regarded as very serious and austere. Turiyananda knew this and one day told him, go and prostrate before Maharaj, touch his feet and sit beside him a while. The boy did so. Maharaj blessed him, touching his head and his back. At once the boy began to feel differently. All his shyness disappeared. He knew now that Maharaj loved him and his own heart was filled with love. From that day onward, he was devoted to Maharaj. Maharaj said jokingly to Turyananda, "You see, I have stolen your disciple." Turyananda laughed and said, "Splendid, now the boy is blessed indeed." Maharaj recognized his future disciples at first sight and bound them to him at once with an indescribable love. Even as he met them, he knew which spiritual path each should follow. Two young college boys came to visit him. To one of them he said jokingly, "Let me see your palm." As he looked at it, he remarked, "You have a tendency towards worldly enjoyments, but by the Lord's grace you may be able to overcome it." Swami Brahamananda, who was present, asked Maharaj to look at the other initiate them only after many years of probation. During the ceremony of initiation, he would be filled with an ecstasy of love, and the disciple would feel an extraordinary sense of the divine presence. Holy Mother once complained that Maharaj did not accept enough disciples. It is so happened that just then Maharaj was invited to see a play about the life of Ramanuja, which had been written by one of his own devotees. In this drama, there is a scene which expresses Ramanuja's great love for mankind. The action is as follows. Ramanuja's Guru initiates him with a sacred mantram and warns him never to reveal it to anyone. "What will happen if I do?" Ramanuja asks, and his Guru replies, "Whoever hears this mantram will be liberated from the bondage of his ignorance, but you yourself will suffer damnation." Ramanuja goes at once into the temple, gathers a crowd around him, and utters the sacred mantram in the hearing of all. His Guru pretends to be very angry and rebukes him for his disobedience. Ramanuja answers, "If my damnation can liberate so many people, then my supreme desire is to be damned." The Guru is delighted. "You are great indeed," he exclaims. "I give you my blessing," and he declares that the philosophy of qualified monism is to be known in future as the Ramanuja philosophy. This drama and Holy Mother's remark both made a deep impression upon Maharaj. After this, he initiated many more disciples. Once while Maharaj and Swami Turyananda were in Vrindavan, a young boy, later Swami Ambikananda, came to visit them. The boy knew Turyananda already and would talk to him for hours, but he was shy of Maharaj. I think this is repetition. Okay. Maharaj recognized his future disciples at first sight and bound them to him at once. This is already Swami Brahamananda, who was present, asked Maharaj to look at the other boys, and he replied smiling, "I don't need to." Hearing this, the other boy, who was later to be known as Swami Yatiswarananda, felt sad. He thought, "My friend has some chance of becoming a monk, but I have none." A few days later, he came alone to visit Maharaj at the Belur monastery. He met Swami Brahamananda's personal attendant, who told him Maharaj said that you would become a monk, and indeed he did. A few years later he became a monk, while the other boy married but remained a devotee. Before Yatishwarananda became a monk, Maharaj told him, "Give your body and mind to worldly enjoyments and the world will destroy them both. Devote them to God and His service and you will enjoy bodily health, peace of mind and spiritual joy." The following is Yatishwarananda's own description of his initiation. The day Maharaj was to initiate me, I felt a spiritual power tangibly emanating from him. After the initiation, I bowed down to him. He raised his hand in benediction above my head, giving me instantly a vivid consciousness of an immanent presence. I realized that the whole universe was merged in that presence. That day also I got a glimpse of the divine nature and power of the Guru. I was literally transported into a new life, and the power that he transmitted to me that day is still working within me. There are some instances of persons receiving atheist who became a disciple of Sri Ramakrishna tells the following story about Brahamananda's extraordinary power. Compared to myself, Rakhal is only a young lad. I know that Sri Ramakrishna regarded him as his spiritual son, but that is not the only reason why I feel such a deep reverence for him. Once while I was seriously ill, I found that I had lost my faith in Sri Ramakrishna. My heart felt dry. Many of the brother disciples came to see me, and I told them about the unhappy state of my mind, but they only kept silent. Then one day Rakhal came. He asked me how I felt, and I described the dryness and lack of devotion from which I was suffering. Rakhal listened attentively. Then he laughed aloud. "Why worry about it?" he asked me. The waves of the ocean rise high, then they go down again, and again they rise. The mind is like that. But please do not be troubled. Your present mood is due to the fact that you are about to rise to a much higher level of spirituality. The wave of the mind is gathering strength. When he left me, all the dryness in my heart had gone. My faith had returned and my mind rose to a higher level than ever before. Although Maharaj initiated me while I was still a college student, I had no intention of entering the order. However, during one Christmas vacation, I went to live for a few days at the monastery. Swami Shuddhananda, a disciple of Swamiji, used to urge me to become a monk, but I would argue with him. I thought the monastic life was lazy. I wanted to devote myself to political activities, believing that India must be freed from the domination of the British. An old man who was also a guest at the monastery used to be present during these arguments. Swami Shuddhananda could never convince me. One morning, as usual, I went to prostrate before Maharaj. This old man was also in the room. Suddenly he asked Maharaj, "When is this boy going to become a monk?" Maharaj looked me up and down, and his eyes had an unforgettable sweetness as he answered quietly, "When the Lord wills." That was the end of my political plans and ambitions. I remained at the monastery. My own case was not exceptional. Many politically minded young men who came into contact with Maharaj were inspired by the spiritual ideals of renunciation, service and and of realizing God. They began to realize that the awakening of India would never come through political action but only through an intensification of the nation's spiritual life, and that this awakening would benefit not India merely but all mankind. Maharaj had wonderful insight into the character and spiritual growth of individuals. A friend of mine whom he knew renounced the world and went to Rishikesh to practice austerity. He would not accept the guidance of any guru. After a few months practice, he wrote me saying that he had attained Samadhi. At that time I was with Maharaj at Kankhal, and I told him the substance of my friend's letter. Why? Exclaimed I. Saw him about 10 days ago. I looked into his eyes. He has not had Samadhi. No doubt he had some kind of mystic vision. The vision of a light perhaps, and he mistakes that for Samadhi. An aspirant is often led astray like that when he has no guru to advise him. Samadhi. Is it an easy matter to attain Samadhi? We saw Swamiji in Samadhi only a few times. Sri Rama Krishna alone was able to live in Samadhi almost continuously day and night. When he quoted a verse from the Upanishads, when a man sees the Supreme Lord, the knots of the heart are cut asunder and all doubts cease to exist. Is it ever possible, I asked, to attain Samadhi after a short time? Yes, if a man has lived an absolutely continent life. Maharaj, with his deep insight, knew the strength and weakness of each of his disciples. He was always ready to help, but he insisted that the disciples should also make some effort. Once I asked him to free my mind from lust. I could do that for you, he replied, but then, my child, you would lose all the joy of struggle. Life would seem insipid. So I end this video here, my dear friends. Thank you for watching and listening this video with patience. Thank you so much. Please like, comment and share the video and subscribe the channel. Thank you, my dear friends. Namaskar. Namaskar.